Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into a document that sounds, maybe a bit dry, a presidential executive order. But trust me, its impact is huge. We're looking at ECO, issued October 15th, 2025, ensuring continued accountability in federal hiring. Basically, it's the new playbook for how the government staffs itself. And understanding this tells you, the listener, a lot about where the government's priorities are heading, where the money's going.
Yeah, it's a really significant shift. Think of it as the government tightening the administrative belt, but also steering the ship much more directly when it comes to who gets hired. It changes how agencies fundamentally operate inside. We need to look at the rules, sure, but also why they're doing this now. And the background section in the order itself gives us a clue.
Right, Section 1, it says that previous efforts already cut the federal workforce, and they claim they beat this target, this ratio of 4 people leaving for every 1 person hired. That was set in an earlier order, EO 14210 from back in February.
Exactly. So the administration's argument is, look, we made things smaller, more efficient. Now we need to make sure it stays that way and maybe even, expand on those gains. So this new order is about locking that in, making sure the government is, quote, optimally staffed and aligned with the priorities of my administration.
That phrase again, aligned with the priorities. Seems like we're going to hear that a lot.
Oh, definitely. It's the thread running through this whole thing. It really shapes everything that follows. So let's jump into the core rule. Section 2. This is the big one. It says that virtually no vacant federal civilian job can be filled. None. And no new positions can be created either.
Whoa, okay, so a hiring freeze. But not quite, because there must be exceptions.
Exactly. It's a near total freeze unless it's specifically allowed by this order or, if some other law requires the position to be filled.
Okay, so if you can't hire by default, the process for getting that permission, getting that exception, that becomes incredibly important. Which brings us to these new gatekeepers, right? Section 2B sets up these strategic hiring committees.
Yes, in every agency. And they have to be set up fast within 30 days.
30 days, that's quick. Who's on them? Is it HR people?
No, not primarily. This is where you really see the shift in control. The committee has to include the deputy agency head, so number 2 in the agency and the chief of staff, plus any other senior officials the agency head picks.
Wait, so the deputy secretary and the chief of staff, these are top political appointees. They're now going to be signing off on potentially every single hire, even like a mid-level analyst.
That's what the order says. It elevates hiring decisions right to the top political leadership within each agency. It's a huge change from, letting program managers or HR handle it.
But isn't that going to completely jam things up? I mean, how can a deputy secretary review paperwork for hundreds, maybe thousands of hires, it seems?
Yeah.
Impractical for just running the day-to-day government.
That's definitely the big operational question mark here. It absolutely creates a potential bottleneck, a big one. But the signal it sends is clear. The administration is willing to accept that slowdown to ensure hires align with their goals. The committee's job, explicitly, is to approve filling each vacancy, making sure it fits agency needs, the national interest, and there it is again, the priorities of my administration.
Okay, so it's a filter, a very high-level political filter on the bureaucracy, and they also have to report their decisions.
Yep. Written notice of every approved hire goes to OPM, the Office of Personnel Management. That's the government's central HR agency.
So there's an oversight loop built in. OPM can track who's getting approved where.
Exactly. It takes hiring from being sort of a routine function, almost administrative, and turns it into a strategic decision that needs explicit political sign-off and central tracking. Agencies now really have to justify why they need someone and why that person fits the current agenda.
Okay, so the committees are the gatekeepers for individual jobs, day to day. But how do they ensure this isn't just, shrinking things randomly? There has to be a bigger plan, right?
Absolutely. The order isn't just about stopping things, it's about actively reshaping the workforce. That's where Section 2C comes in. It mandates these comprehensive annual staffing plans.
Annual plans, okay. What do they involve?
Agencies have just 60 days to pull these together.
Yeah.
60. And they have to work with both OPM, the HR folks, and OMB, the Office of Management and Budget.
Ah, OMB. So the money people, that means the plans have to pass muster on both the personnel side and the budget side. That's a high bar.
It really is. And the plans themselves have very specific goals. They need to ensure any new career hires the permanent civil servants are targeted to highest need areas, and you guessed it, align with the priorities of my administration.
Always the priorities. Okay, so what are these specific goals the plans have to hit? The EO lists them out, right?
It does. There are 5 key objectives. Let's walk through them because they really tell the story of what this administration values. First, improve operational efficiency. Classic goal. Second, eliminate duplication, get rid of unnecessary jobs or functions. Also, pretty standard efficiency stuff.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Third, reduce unnecessary or, quote, low-value contractor positions. This is interesting.
Ah, contractors. So it's not just about cutting federal employee numbers, but also looking at the consultants and contracted services.
Exactly. And hold that thought because there's a related point in Section 5 we need to circle back to. It basically stops agencies using contractors to get around the hiring freeze. So yes, definitely aiming at the overall footprint, not just the direct federal payroll.
Got it. So efficiency, cutting duplication, reducing contractors. What else?
Fourth is promoting employee accountability.
Yep.
And fifth, this one feels like the real core focus. Appropriately prioritize hiring for national security, homeland security, and public safety jobs. So the whole planning process is kind of designed to funnel the limited hiring resources towards those specific areas.
Security and enforcement.
Yeah.
While potentially shrinking elsewhere. And how do they make sure agencies actually stick to these plans? Is there follow-up?
Oh, yes. Accountability is built in. Agencies have to submit quarterly updates. Starting Q2 of fiscal year 2026, they report to both OPM and OMB on how they're doing against those 5 goals. It keeps the pressure on, links the workforce strategy directly to the budget process year-round. Now, the strong focus on security and enforcement naturally leads us to think about who isn't covered by these strict rules. The exceptions laid out in Section 3 are really telling. They show where the administration wants maximum flexibility.
Right. If the default is no hiring without committee approval, then who gets a free pass? Who bypasses that bottleneck?
Well, first, there are some obvious structural ones. Military personnel are out naturally, and significantly, the Executive Office of the President, the EOP, basically the White House staff, is exempt.
Okay, so the president's immediate team can hire freely. That makes sense for responsiveness. What about political appointees across the government?
Largely exempt, too. The order doesn't apply to most political jobs. Things like positions requiring presidential appointment with Senate confirmation, non-career SES, that's the Senior Executive Service, and Schedule C or Schedule G positions.
Okay, hold on. For listeners like me, maybe, who aren't DC insiders, SES, Schedule C, Schedule G, what are those? Why are they always carved out of these freezes?
Good question. Think of them as different tiers of political staff. The SES, Senior Executive Service, is the top layer of career managers, but there are also non-career SES slots. Those are political appointees brought in at a high level to drive the administration's agenda. Schedule C positions are typically policy advisors, confidential assistants, roles where political loyalty and alignment are paramount. Schedule G is similar, often for temporary political roles. So essentially, these are the people hired specifically because they are aligned with the administration's priorities. The order aims to align the career staff, so it makes sense they wouldn't restrict hiring their own political team. They need those people in place quickly.
That makes sense. They need their own people. So the political team is safe. What about those mission-critical areas you mentioned? Security, enforcement.
That's the other huge category of exceptions, and it reinforces the priorities we saw in the planning section. The order explicitly states it does not apply to jobs related to immigration enforcement, national security, or public safety.
Wow. So if an agency needs to hire, say, Border Patrol agents or FBI agents or cybersecurity folks, they don't need to go to the Strategic Hiring Committee.
Correct. They can hire directly, quickly, without that extra layer of political review mandated for other types of positions. It ensures those priority functions can staff up as needed without delay.
That creates a very clear 2-track system then. Fast track for security and enforcement, slow track for almost everything else.
Precisely. And there are a couple of other sort of safety valves too. Section 3 also allows an agency head another political appointee to approve other non-career hires if needed. And the director of OPM can grant broader exemptions if strictly necessary, maybe if an agency is facing a real crisis. But even those escape hatches require high-level political apprex. Okay. #tag outro. So, if we pull back and look at the whole picture, what this executive order really does is install multiple layers of control. You've got the strategic hiring committees vetting individual hires, you've got the mandatory annual staffing plans, forcing agencies to strategically shrink or reshape according to priorities. It's all designed to, 1, reduce the overall size of the general civilian workforce, and 2, make sure that the people who are hired, especially career staff, are tightly aligned with the administration's agenda while simultaneously boosting hiring and security and enforcement.
It's a major restructuring, clearly.
Yeah.
Now, for people listening, maybe you're worried this could slow down essential services you rely on, Social Security checks, Medicare claims, veterans benefits. Did the order address that?
It did. There's a specific clause, Section 5E, that acts as a safeguard. It explicitly says the order cannot be implemented in a way that negatively impacts providing Social Security, Medicare, or veterans benefits. So those core functions are, at least on paper, protected from any slowdowns caused by the hiring restrictions.
That's important reassurance. Okay, before we wrap up, what's the final takeaway? The provocative thought for our listeners.
For me, what's really fascinating, and maybe the thing to watch going forward, is that specific point about contractors we touched on, Section 5C. The order explicitly prohibits agencies from getting around the hiring freeze by just, hiring external contractors to do the same work.
Right, closing the loophole.
Exactly. It suggests the administration anticipated that agencies might try to replace federal workers with contractors, potentially even at higher cost, just to maintain headcount or function. By explicitly forbidding that, they're signaling a real commitment to reducing the total government footprint and expenditure, not just playing a shell game between federal employees and private contractors. Whether that holds true in practice, well, that's what we'll need to keep an eye on. It's a bold move to try and control both internal and external staffing simultaneously.
A true attempt at shrinking, not just shifting, the workforce. It really highlights the immense challenge and the competing priorities involved in managing something as vast as the federal government. It definitely gives us all something to think about. Thanks for breaking that down for us.